Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
What are you doing?
Why are you pacing? Take a seat.
It's for a blooper. Okay, let's go.
Let's get cracking.
Get crack. Dave, where are we today?
This-
Yes. Dave, where are we today?
So today we have another weekly roundtable episode for you. We're gonna get into a couple different things. We'll refresh on the debt ceiling, talk about AI a little bit, some new emerging tech. Probably finish things off with EVs. But for now, let's get into what's new with the debt ceiling.
Yeah, yeah, we should probably start there. It was raised, like we said it would be. Not much surprise there. But what's interesting is the time frame that they raised it to. So they suspended the debt ceiling until 25, which means it's not going to be an issue in our elections, in the elections of 2024. And it looks like, remember how we were saying before, it's going to come to concessions between cutting spending or increasing taxes.
Right.
It's all cutting spending.
Yeah, I saw that Republicans actually got even more than they had wanted. We're looking at, what is it, 2.1 trillion in cuts to spending. I'm curious if in the approval they had anything to do with the expedited approval of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, because I know that that was a big talking point for a senator from West Virginia. He was
Is it in Virginia or West
talking-
Virginia?
West Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently it's going to lower energy costs for the United States and for that state in particular. I wonder if that got passed. I know another big talking point was, as you know, in the beginning of the pandemic, Biden suspended student loan, basically payments and interest accrual. And I'm pretty sure within 30 days of this being passed, that's going back to the norm.
So for the first time since the start of the pandemic, you're gonna have to start paying
Right.
back student loans, and that pipeline, I think it was approved.
Okay,
We'll have to check that, but I'm pretty sure it was.
that was a big thing.
It was huge.
don't
Another thing is, if you remember last year, there was a huge investment into. I mean, investment. You could debate on the use of that word, but the IRS had increased funding. Mainly, the Democrats are pushing this
Yes.
bill in order to reel in lost tax revenue, as they were calling it. That's being cut back now.
I saw that.
Not
Yeah.
completely, but to a large extent, that is being cut back.
Interesting. I'm not sure how much that would. Is that really going to make a noticeable difference moving forward?
In the debts, I mean, look, they were taking a little bit here, a little bit there. But yeah, I guess let's not get hung up on the debt ceiling. At the end of the day, it was raised mainly by cutting spending, and just highlights student loans. They took a little bit out of the IRS. They did put
Pipeline.
into the pipeline to decrease energy costs. Two things they did not touch were the Inflation Reduction Act and another policy. I could probably find it. But another policy that Biden hadn't stated. Those are two things that were off the table. The
Gotcha.
Democrats said we're not touching this.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, no point in really dwelling on it. We knew it would happen. Like, there's no way we're gonna default, even though we are getting closer. It is interesting though. This is probably the most tense that this negotiation has been in a while. But I'm glad we could put it to bed behind us. Should we move forward into talking NVIDIA and kind of the world of AI? So if you guys didn't know, NVIDIA had, what was it, like a 30% after hours gain?
At 30% is even the start of it. It's
Yeah.
like 10,000% in the last 10
Exactly.
years. It's insane.
And I'm pretty sure their single gain in that day increased their market cap to being more than the market cap of AMD, which is like one of their biggest competitors. Like, that was huge. So should we tell us
I mean, well, first of all, talking just
what's
about
going on?
yeah, specifically about market cap, that puts them in the same ranks as Apple, Microsoft, and not who else is at $1 trillion market
Google?
cap? But yeah, probably Google. So Nvidia is a company that, if you guys are into gaming or familiar with that sort of stuff, they make graphics processing units. As we move into the age of AI, they also make chips that, I mean, I'm not into the whole
Yeah.
computer stuff, but from what I understand, the same hardware that's put into making graphics processing units actually applies to chips that process artificial intelligence data sets.
Yes. And these are the same chips, like that's the same kind of AI that's underlying ChatGPT, Bard, DALL-E, all of these new emerging technologies. Yeah, they power, it's called generative AI.
Yeah.
That's what the chips are being used for. So they overperformed the revenue $7.2 billion versus expected was
In the quarter.
6.5. Yes.
in the quarter.
which is insane to think about. I'm curious. So I actually have a statement from their CEO. This is what they said is going to happen moving forward. $1 trillion of installed global data center infrastructure will transition from general purpose to accelerated computing as companies race to apply generative AI into every product, service, and business process.
I think that because here's the thing, right? This is my understanding. Let's say I go into ChatGPT and I type in any sort of request into a language learning model. What it does is it sends that request to a data farm with an array of these chips, processes it, and then sends it back. So this isn't happening on our computers as we do it. So is what he's saying that this is going to become $1 trillion market as companies race to implement it? Is that what he means?
Yeah, I believe so.
So then 100% because I think
That's the value of basically the infrastructure that they have installed. That's what it will be used for, basically.
Right. And I think that what's special about NVIDIA is, and I don't hear this being spoken about a lot, but they have not just the hardware, but the software for these programs as well. And I think that makes it really proprietary just because with AI, it's not just the fact that it can be done, but it's with the speed that it can be done. People are paying for requests to be put through faster. I believe it's GPT-4. It's around $20 a month. So speed is going to be a thing, especially for instant services. Like if we start, and then we could look at future use cases, right? Think about where can AI go next. So like, let's say routing, right? Like navigation, something like that. That's something that has to be done quick.
Right.
So I think that with these companies, it's going to come down to not just who can do it, but who can do it the fastest.
And you know what else is interesting? There's a new position that's opening up. It's called AI prompt engineer. And it's basically, you know how for Google they have search engine optimization
Okay.
like agencies basically where they help you rank highest on Google. This I kind of see a parallel between that. This would be creating the best possible prompts to put into AI so you get like accurate results. Because as you know, like from your own experience using ChatGPT, using Bard, depending on the way that you frame a question, you're gonna get a drastically different response. So I know a lot of people they go like act as though you're my lawyer, for example, and then they give some kind of legal question. Like it's a really big new emerging, I guess, need. Apparently, the pay is up to 335K per year.
So this is a person who is giving prompts to the AI?
Yes, they're designing prompts to give to the AI to get basically the best possible outputs, and companies will pay them to research.
Right. And I think it's crazy just the variety of answers that you get. But I think that as we move forward, the whole point of these language learning models, I think that there's different types of AI, right? There's the language learning models that we have where we have ChatGPT. But then there's also artificial intelligence that you don't see that works behind the scenes. Right. If you have something like a tool in education or a tool in banking or like another investment algorithm, something like that. So if we're speaking strictly about these language learning models, Chat, you showed it to me in November, right?
Yes.
Actually, yeah. I mean, he introduced me. I didn't even know what it is.
I'm one of the founders.
But point being, the reason that it's being put out to us and why it was free is so that it can keep learning and growing, right? So the whole point is that as it becomes more intelligent, and intelligence is really this is my whole qualm with artificial intelligence. Is it really its own intelligence, or is it just aggregating intelligence that already exists?
Right, and another thing is like it's kind of a big problem with AI nowadays. I don't know how much it's still in play in terms of GPT-4, but I know at least for Google Bard and the free version of ChatGPT we have access to, a lot of times even if they don't know the answer to something, they're still going to give you a response and it's going to make it sound very accurate. But if you actually fact check it, you're going to realize it's not true, because the information that they're pulling, it's not that they necessarily understand it. I'm pretty sure it basically based off of all of the data that they have, they find the word with the highest probability of coming next after a word that's already put in, if that makes sense.
Oh, and that's how it structures the response.
Yeah, like it's basically it's not based on its understanding of the data. It's just like what's the most likely word to come next.
And I mean,
this response.
I think that looking at it in that lens, it's not really intelligent.
Right.
It's just sort of it's the way that I saw when it came out was almost like a streamlined Google, right?
Yes.
Because you search and there's no advertisements, which I think maybe a year down the line we're going to do another segment on advertising in AI.
Oh, that would be interesting, right?
Exactly.
Especially if Like in Google Bard, they don't have this in ChatGPT, but Google Bard, it's updated like with current information. So if you ask it like, where's the best place I can buy a microphone for my podcast, maybe the results that you get will be based off of sponsors.
That's the thing. And I mean, I guess now we're on the topic of Bard and GPT and ChatGPT. I think, at least in my experience, just the things that I use them for, I feel like ChatGPT, because it's been out for longer and it's been learning for longer, it's better than Bard,
I
honestly. And despite the fact that Bard can access the internet, like we said before, even when it gets current information, it doesn't have the intelligence to actually filter through and understand, oh, which parts of this make sense, which figures are accurate. Like a human could look at a number and say, for example, like let's say you ask it, how long does it take to cook an egg, right? A human can look at a number and be like,
That's
2 days is too long, right? But the computer doesn't know the difference between 2 days and 2 minutes. It's just a line of code. I think that's what makes it intelligent versus not intelligent.
right. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily intelligent. Yeah, would probably be the wrong word to describe it, but it's definitely very powerful software that can be applied in a lot of different ways. You know what I'm interested to see as things go on? I wonder how much we're going to start seeing AI in the world of entertainment. Because I know, for example, with generative AI, one of the things that NVIDIA had been working on, it's a platform called NVIDIA Ace, and it's going to put generative AI into video games. And essentially, you'll actually be able to talk to the characters in the games.
So
And yeah, it would basically use AI to communicate with you. Because like the same way you could communicate to even like the Snapchat AI in like a friendly type of way, they would just have the video game characters with like they'll tell it like this character has these certain personality traits and whatever else, and you'll be able to communicate.
I mean, the way I interpreted it, as you were saying it, was that the AI would allow the game to build upon itself. So you would have the baseline of a game, and then you could sort of develop the game as you wanted it.
I mean, that could be something that could happen.
But that's more advanced. Like
That might be more. I mean, that might be where things will turn. That you basically like some kind of base level game, but then depending on the relationships you build, it can go a bunch of different ways.
but that's cool. I mean, especially since that's Nvidia's own thing, so they're not really selling it to anyone else. But the way that I see it is that the fact that Nvidia is jumping on this now doesn't necessarily mean anything for them in the long run, right? Just because at least in my opinion, they were positioned for this in a way, just because they sort of had the hardware worked out
Right.
already. But I think we're going to see companies come out with who have more experience in building processing units, who have the software behind it. For example, Apple, right? When they moved over to their silicon chip, that's an immensely fast chip. And looking even further down the line, concepts like quantum computing. There's a Nobel Prize recently awarded for stuff like that.
Right.
I think it's going to get increasingly faster, and I don't know if Nvidia is necessarily going to be the biggest player 10 years from now, even if they're the first right now.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, I think in this type of space, what NVIDIA has done well is that they've adapted and they've innovated. Like we saw this huge shift and they were kind of the first ones, even though they already had the hardware, but they kind of jumped on it and now they're starting to innovate. Now they're building supercomputers, they're building this generative AI video games. Innovation will be key for any big players moving forward. And I do think that Google has done a really good job, launching Bard as quickly as they did, and Microsoft as well. I know that they have their relationship with ChatGPT. I think those players will stay the same, but I do think Apple will probably get in the mix very soon.
I mean, just because of the experience they have. But I also think that, like, let's say it's important to understand what people are using artificial intelligence for, right? I mean, look, I'm speaking as a consumer, right? Not really as a market analyst. Companies keep throwing the word artificial intelligence around and their stock skyrockets, right? But what does that actually mean for us humans, right? So I think that I don't use AI as a regular part of my life. When I do use artificial intelligence, it's mainly to streamline certain tasks, right?
Exactly.
That would take me a longer time and be busy work. So, like, for example, throwing together a quick presentation, right? There's artificial intelligence for that. Or, for example, I'll take
Responding to emails.
responding to email. Bard actually does a really good job of that. So I think that AIs will. So between Bard and ChatGPT, ChatGPT does not have that integration into Gmail, right? But Bard does have that extra feature. So I think it's actually understanding how consumers use this technology and not just saying, oh, this uses AI, and that's why it's great.
Interestingly enough, though, I'm pretty sure that there are now a lot of new Chrome extensions which are powered by ChatGPT. So I know a notable one. There's an extension you could put in that's going to summarize articles for you as you're reading. There's one that I believe if it can get access to YouTube transcripts, it'll summarize a YouTube video for you. So that's going to be another big thing moving forward is extensions.
What do you think about this whole AI is going to make humans dumb and then it's going to take over the world?
So here's the thing, and this is actually something as well that I saw when I was researching yesterday. I saw a lot of talk online, like on Twitter specifically, among some, influencers in the space. They think that because of AI, it's going to make things, easier for people to basically allow people to work less. So they're saying there might be like 4-day work weeks now, moving forward, like because things will be so much more streamlined. I think the truth is it's gonna be the same way as any other, new great technology that comes out. Yeah, it's gonna make things easier, but it's not gonna put people out of work. I don't believe in the same way as there would just be new positions that open up, and it's gonna be about who's able to leverage this technology to create the most profitable types of businesses, and I think we'll see a lot of that moving forward. I don't think that uh, it's going to make people dumber. I think it's just going to be another resource to actually let people be smarter. Like, for example, when Google came out, yeah, people maybe don't need to go to the library as much because they can find everything they need online. That doesn't mean that they're just going to stop reading. It's just another way for them to access that information.
And I think that also as a tool for learning, artificial intelligence is like a teacher within itself. It's like a free tutor. I mean,
Exactly.
like math concepts, English concepts. You can ask ChatGPT an initial question and then follow questions. But I think, honestly, in my mind, it's exciting to see where this could go. Not just in the field of education, but like you were saying with the 4-day work week. Imagine you have a stream of emails, right? And ChatGPT can like give you a push notification as so this is a suggested reply.
Yeah.
I know Google does that now, but like let's say without Bard, but it'll give you like a couple words like okay, thank you, or I'll see you next week, or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's what it'll do. It'll cut time out of miscellaneous tasks, and I think that this is where companies like Apple, for example, will start to integrate it into their phones. Like Google, they have their phone, they'll integrate Bard. Apple, maybe they'll make Siri more advanced. Maybe they'll come up with a whole new name
Yeah,
for
I
it.
was gonna say, isn't Siri in a way like it's has similar properties?
Yeah.
Like for a while now, they've had Siri.
Well, any voice assistant. That's what I'm saying.
The thing is though, Siri, it wasn't. It would tell you maybe something very basic, like if you ask like how old is this actor, it would tell you that right away. But otherwise, it would just direct you to Google.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm assuming that it'll probably receive some big updates soon. That'll be interesting to see.
But I think it's the integration with products that people already use. Just in my mind, right? Like I have an iPhone, you have an iPhone. We both get an email, and then we get like a push notification, right? Like I'm suggesting to Apple. I think this is a cool feature, right? It analyzes the email, it comes up with a response, and it'll say, "Hey, is this okay to send?" And then just send it.
Right. The thing is, emails, like I could see myself definitely. I've already used AIs to help me out with the emails, but depending on how important, like, how long before you start trusting AI for actual more important tasks?
I think well.
I think so too.
But that's what I'm saying. It still requires the final screening of human approval, right? So
Yes.
it's not just going to send it immediately for you. Like in the email example, you still end up looking it over. But I think that also another debate that I've seen just people around me having, family members, is it legitimate work? So if you prompt AI to do something, right, and use AI to build something for yourself, is that your work or is that forgery? I mean,
Right.
plagiarism.
And I mean, like, are we gonna get to the point where, let's say, you're trying to email about something that's not too important, I guess, like a little busy work email, but it's a conversation you're having with someone else. Will we get to the point where it's just two AIs communicating to each other? Like you use AI to draft your email, then the AI push notification to them, is this okay to send? Boom, and it just like will it remove that kind of person to person interaction?
That's interesting. I mean, but that's the thing. It's not that. It's not person to person interaction. It's still just emails. But yeah, I guess
But I
I
mean,
guess that's
it's a
good.
personal aspect of it, and I'm assuming that they would also add it to text messages as well.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that could be a future use case for it. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious to see in what other aspects will new AIs start coming out in. Like right now we have, the big players, Bard and ChatGPT, but there's a bunch of new AIs that come out every day. And a lot of them are like kind of specialists. Like some of them are like they allow you to, look through certain data sets. Others, there's probably some already that are for email automation, for example. I wonder how much more room there is to carve out, or if it's just going to end up being the biggest players use for everything.
I mean, right now it's just taking functions that we already have and streamlining them with AI, but it's not exactly new functions being created for something that AI can do. Like for example, if I'm editing a clip of video and I want to streamline the sound production, there's ways to do that that would just take a really long time, right? What AI does is it just takes that element out of it, and I just press one button and it cleans it up.
But what I'm asking is, do you believe that, for example, ChatGPT would just be able to handle like all of these AI responsibilities? Like you could use it both for what it's used for now, but also for editing clips and whatnot. Or will there be like niches, and you would use different AIs for different uses?
Of course, because they're developed differently. So I think that it's just going to come down to different programs being used in different ways. And from my understanding, a language learning model wouldn't operate in the same way that like the video editing thing that I was just talking about.
Probably not. Right.
Just because it makes no sense.
I think it's also going to be interesting to see how it affects like news, because why listen to, for example, like a news pundit or a news host talk about things when you can get, like AI can engineer a voice for you, and just have it read out whatever's going on, and it'll be completely unbiased. That might be a future
I
thing to
guess.
look out for.
But that's also the fear people have. Like, what about when it does become biased? You know,
Right,
like what
you
if
can't
someone
control
sneaks
it.
that in?
It's possible.
Yeah, and I guess I wanted to round off also on a separate note, but also just sort of more related to technology. Ford and Tesla have struck up a deal, which I think is really crucial just to the electric vehicle market moving forward. So Tesla has a huge network of charging infrastructure,
Right.
which they have now allowed Ford to use, which I think is a really interesting move on Tesla's part because it's almost like Ford is using Tesla to beat Tesla. But
What are the terms of the agreement? Like, is Ford, is there some kind of contract that Ford is paying Tesla?
Um, financially, there's not really been details released that I've seen, but it's sort of a trade-off. Because I mean, Ford offered some concessions to Tesla as well, but effectively what happens is, Ford does not have a huge charging infrastructure. In fact, they don't have any unique chargers of their own. They were using another network called Electrify America. So what happens now is Ford vehicles can charge at Tesla stations.
Right.
And I think that like moving forward to electric vehicles, I personally don't think that they're really a more efficient mode of transport, just because of what goes into making the batteries. But I think that in terms of evolving an electric vehicle network, it's important to have a place for everyone to charge, not just for the brand itself, because
Yeah.
that on the whole makes the electric vehicle more accessible.
Right. Like it grows the whole pie rather than just carving out, a bigger piece of a smaller one for yourself.
Exactly. Because I know, I mean, like considering electric vehicles, I think the biggest problem facing most buyers, and just myself, my family considering, it is the charging. That's the
That's a
largest
big
question.
one.
It's the largest question.
I think also, weather conditions, and the increased electricity prices per month are other big issues for people. I wonder how those will be addressed moving forward. Are we ready for, like a huge big shift of the population to switch over to EVs?
It's funny that you asked that because California thought they were ready, and then their infrastructure was not ready, and the governor actually said, "Please don't charge your electric vehicles," just because their infrastructure couldn't handle it.
Exactly.
But I think it's good. I think it's an interesting partnership to see, just because it's really kind of two
Two big
competitors,
players
yeah,
as well.
shaking hands. But yeah, I think that for people who are interested in electric vehicles who wanted to buy a Ford, I think it's definitely going to heat things up between Ford and Tesla and other manufacturers.
Interesting.
Um,
Should we round off the roundtable?
yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you guys. We'll keep you updated on, I guess, everything that moves on. We learn as you learn.
We do.
Um,
Any suggestions for what you guys want us to look into, whether it be War Room deep dive, new next topics for a roundtable, drop them in the comments. As usual, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next week.
all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Good episode.
Smooth. I think it was pretty good.
Calm.
I think with the discussion about AI was pretty good.
I think it was interesting.
Yeah. It was more like we were able to go off our notes just because
Exactly.
we're familiar with using it.
Exactly. Yeah, we're on personal experience.
But yeah, I definitely want to have someone in the studio.
And it's still.
It'll
I want
enrich.
some guests. I want like, think about how cool it'd be to have like an AI specialist on the pod. You know?
Okay.
Like, just think about all the different things. Like, if we bring on cool guests that are specialists, I think it would really. But that's the thing. We're